Welcome to the So Much More podcast, where we talk with people in the custom window treatment, soft home furnishings industry, and so much more. I'm your host, Seal DeGuglielmo. My guest on the podcast today is Bob Gallic. With over 30 years in the interior design industry, Bob has founded and led multiple successful firms that have specialized in custom upholstery, window treatments, as well as automated shading. Bob's work spans major markets from New York and Miami to Chicago and Vail. He maintains close collaborations with clients and interior designers, working discreetly and efficiently to bring design visions to life while exceeding expectations every step of the way. I've known Bob peripherally for a few years. We both belonged to the New Jersey chapter of the WCAA, and we spoke a few times over the years, but I have been seeing more of him on Instagram, and we have a little chuckle about that and how he's getting it done during the recording. But Bob is one of those people who does a lot for the people around him, and he has just such a upbeat personality that he is a pleasure to be around. So I really hope that you enjoy hearing from Bob today. Good morning, Bob. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. This is really an honor.
Well, it's my pleasure. And people can't see what I can see. Your background is a lovely moving ocean and palm trees, and it's just such a lovely way to start the day. Whether I'm actually there or not, who cares? I'm looking at it.
That's exactly what our business should be. It should be relaxing and calming. I always say to people, we're not here to do heart surgery, right? We're here to make people's life fun, exciting, beautiful, right? And that's really the goal of window treatments and draperies and everything else that we do in our business, is to frame a picture, to enhance somebody's life, to make it look beautiful so that they can enjoy it. Anyway.
Well, you're following it through all the way to every aspect, Bob, because like I said, I may not be at the ocean, but I'm sure looking at it, so I'll take it. Let's start, Bob, by having you tell us who you are, where you are in the world, and a little bit about yourself.
So Workroom Services is located in North Central Jersey, about an hour outside of Manhattan. We are a to-the-trade workroom only. I've had my business now for 32 years, worked for other people, learning the trade before that for the previous 10. So I've been at this a few years at this point. So we are, as I said, to the trade. We work with designers, architects, contractors, doing draperies, motorized shades, reupholstery, upholstered headboards, basically anything to do with fabric. Okay. Our area of where we go is quite honestly wherever our designers go. While we're centrally located in Manhattan, we do have work basically all over the country. We were in Vail, Colorado last year, in Nashville. We have 7 currently ongoing projects down in Florida, between the Miami, West Palm area, a number of jobs in the Hamptons. So I always say to our people, it doesn't matter where you are. We will get there. We will do it.
How did you said you learned from other people. Did you open Workroom Services yourself? Did you purchase it? What were the circumstances that brought you to where you are now?
So the circumstances, I graduated from high school in 3 years, which was allowed at the time. All I had to do was skip a gym, and I had enough of school, was accepted into a number of colleges, decided to take a year off to become a framer. And I told my father that, and he said, well, why don't you try upholstery? It'll keep you warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And I said to him, I was like, he worked on Wall Street. And I asked him years later, I was like, why did you send that to me? He's like, why did you say? He's like, you were not that smart. He's like, I figured you'd work for a year and then you go to get your college degree. So I never did get onto my college degree. I worked for Ziegner's of Summit, which was a furniture store that had an upholstery thing in the background. And then I went to work for Stessel Neugebauer, who really taught me this business. He not only taught me how, but why. Why am I putting this nail in this area? why am I putting this stitch here? Why am I doing this? So he was an excellent teacher that to this day I credit him with really teaching my skill. After that, I did go out on my own. I've gone through a few iterations of what I do and that kind of stuff. But it's also always basically been a workroom. I did have a retail store at one point, decided that that wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I've continued on through the years of just basically being a workroom to the trade. And honestly, I enjoy it. It makes it so I rarely have meetings Saturdays and Sundays, rarely have meetings at nights, and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a lifestyle choice years ago to kind of do in the area of what I do.
Okay. And so you started out learning upholstery,
Yeah.
and then did you learn how to make window treatments?
Yes. So
Okay.
in the same shop where I was really hired as an upholsterer, and in that same shop was a higher end workroom. They also did draperies where I watched and learned how to do it. I would also go out with them and doing their window treatment installs as well as
Okay.
doing upholstery. So
Okay.
that's where I really learned my trade.
Okay. So when you decided to go on your own, tell us a little bit about that. Was it met with encouragement? Were you all of a sudden competition? How did that go?
Yeah, it was met with encouragement, with a little bit of, really should I be doing this, especially from my wife, because I was married at that point. I think
Okay.
we just had our third child at that point. That's kind of how I know how many years
Okay.
I've been in business.
There's the
Uh,
marker.
yeah, I did have another job which allowed me one use of a van and two use of time. The previous person that had my job, what took him 10 hours took me 2 hours.
Okay.
So I was able to get paid, have a van, and still do my side of work. So I did that for about 2, 3 years and then decided to start out on my own, working in my parents' basement. Worked there for a number of years. So kept things tight and then gradually expanded to the workroom that I have now, which is approximately 8,000 square feet, where I employ 19 people to this day.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I knew you had several employees. I did not know how many. And I should say that you and I met years ago at a New Jersey, couple of WCA New Jersey meetings. But we have not, I haven't seen you in a couple of years. I realized that when we were corresponding, but I see you on Instagram. So I feel like I do see you.
well, thankfully, technology somewhat eludes me, and my daughter is actually in charge of my Instagram account right now. I did have somebody else in the shop. She's taken it over, and so she keeps saying to me, "Put more videos out there, get more pictures, and that kind of stuff." And I'm like, ah.
And yet you're doing it. So that's
Yes,
awesome.
yes.
Bob, one of the things that always intrigues me when someone has been learning the business and decides to go out on their own is what they buy first. What's the first piece of equipment? And since your focus was on upholstery in the beginning, did you need much to get started? What did you get first when you went off on your own?
Sure. So yes, I did more start out as an upholsterer in the beginning, especially the first few years, and I gradually added draperies. Probably about 6, 7 years after I started my own business. One of the first things I ever bought was a foam cutter. I went to a hardware store that sold lots of tools, and I said, "This is the pieces that I need." And they looked at me and they're like, I was nuts. So they went back into the stock room. They actually had one of the foam cutters, and they're like, "Here you go." Well, that foam cutter literally died 2 weeks ago. It has
Oh
been
my
with
gosh.
me for 37, 8 years. And I keep saying, I think I'm going to take it out, bronze it, and hang it up as my first tool that I've ever owned.
Oh,
So
that's
that was my
amazing.
first tool. So it was pretty
Okay.
funny because this was even before really staples and compressors. And what I was doing was called spitting tacks. Where
Yes.
the tacks would be in your mouth and you have a magnetic hammer and you'd bang them out into the pieces and that kind of stuff. So in the beginning, my costs were very low, extremely
Okay.
low. So yes, my big expensive tool was my foam cutter, which sadly just died.
That's really sad, Bob, that it's been with you all that time. So I'm thinking you've gone from spitting tacks to motorized draperies.
Yes.
That's incredible. And that's um I'd like to think I'm still really young, but I know better. That's an amazing stretch of technology in the 30 some years that you've been in business.
Yeah, it amazes me how far it's come. I saw um, motorization coming down very early on. And I can't say I was one of the first adapters to it, but I quickly adapted to it. I actually got started, especially with Lutron. I saw one of their shades in the back of a UPS truck, and I asked the guy about where he was delivering it to, and he told me he could not tell me, but he let me see the address. And the next day, I went and knocked on that person's door and asked them about Lutron, and motorized shades and that kind of stuff. I actually
Wow.
ended up buying that company about a year later. And the owner came and worked for me for about a year, and we're still good friends to this day. She's moved to Texas and that kind of stuff. But it's kind of strange. Yeah, technology is one of those things that, well, I can't say I know everything about it. I do know a bit about it, especially from the shade sites. We pride ourselves on knowing how shades integrate with the different systems, whether it be Lutron, Crestron, Control 4, and that kind of stuff. We do not
Mhm.
claim to become integrators, or now what integrators are becoming are people that play with lights as well. I know this is a little bit off topic, but it's interesting how technology is changing, and we have been pushed into that way, and I
Right.
have resisted that push, much to the chagrin of my salespeople, who really want me to do it. And I'm like, that's a different technology. So I've decided to stay in the, can I say, soft goods side of it. I
Okay.
enjoy it. I enjoy working with the fabrics and seeing what the designers bring to life. It's really fun. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
So
And it's interesting, Bob, because one of the things that I have found in interviewing people over the years is that we all can make our businesses what we want them to be. And we can make choices like, okay, yeah, the motorization part of it fascinates me, and I'm going to focus on that, and that is going to be my business. And there are companies around me that do that, do it well. And there are those of us that are like, yeah, I really, really do like working with the fabric and creating things and making homes beautiful and not worried about hardwiring things and not worry about. But it's also if we're going to be a to the trade workroom, we have to be able to either offer certain services or know who we can connect those designers to so that we can provide the services that they need.
and that's very important. That's one of the things that I wish our industry, and you're doing some of it, would actually talk more about. The biggest challenge I have found is from designers who don't share their resources with one another. So they're
Right.
very segregated. They will not share which makes us then become segregated. Okay. So, because we don't tend to know one another. Now, WCAA came out here. A number of other groups have been out there, and they've done a great job connecting with people, with ourselves. I love talking to other people in this industry. Uh,
Hmm.
how do you do things? Where do you do things? What part of the business are you in? And there is a resistance sometimes from us as owners not willing to share information with one another. And so we do also have to get to the point where we are able to share that information. And there are forums like that out there now that
Right.
able to share that information. But yeah, it is fun.
Yeah, and it's also, as you said, I enjoy that part of it as well, is connecting with other people in the industry and having those aha moments where I've been doing things a certain way and somebody shows me something, oh, well, that's a lot better. I'll be doing that from now on. Or visiting a larger workroom, somebody like you, some of the other people who are in our Pennsylvania, New Jersey chapter, and just seeing, all right, if I've got 3 employees, how do I have to have things set up, and could it be the same for me as a single person workroom? Does it make sense to do the same thing? Is having 6 pairs of scissors, one at each machine, more effective than 1 pair of scissors that I leave across the room? Like, it's little things like that that you just, in conversation with somebody, can be so fascinating.
And that's exactly it. It's small and it's big. Like, I'm always willing to go and visit somebody that has one person working for them. They
Hmm.
might be doing things differently that I've never seen before or never thought about it and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And at the flip side, I went to see a large company that does things quite different than I do in terms of we do a lot of hand stuff, hand sewn
Hmm.
edges, that kind of stuff. My staff can quickly turn from doing pinch pleated draperies to flat Romans to whatever needs to be done. And this other workroom that's being set up is basically panels, and it's all large motorized companies, and not large machines, I should say,
Okay.
and and it's interesting to go see that also,
Yeah.
so it's like it's different. And I said to him, I was like, years ago, if I had the money behind them, it's a large corporation, and they're putting probably over $1 million into this facility to basically do custom draperies, and they're only
Hmm.
going to be doing custom draperies. I was like, I might have ended up in that area,
Okay.
because I think it's really interesting. It's just a different way of doing the business. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
There's a great series of the is it F5, the manufacturing process where everything is really like to the last detail made, so that when you pick your scissors up, you put them down in exactly the same place. And when you look at some of these large manufacturing companies, that is how they do those things to make it more efficient. And I look at that and I'm fascinated, but then I think, yes, but I want to make pillows tomorrow and drapes the day after that and a Roman shade the day after that.
And
So
that's where you have to know your business, right?
yes,
That's
yes.
where you have to know, certain things and that kind of stuff. And that's where you have to let so my staff is awesome. I have to tell you, I have the best staff out there. Currently I have, in terms of the back sewing room, I have 6 ladies that sew for me. I have one person mounting a lot of our Romans and another gentleman who's basically in charge of it. And sometimes they'll come to me and be like, we need to change this, we need to change that.
Mhm.
And that's where I'm like, great. Like, what our goal is for a beautiful finished product.
Hmm.
How we get there is sometimes a different route, and sometimes when I can't figure it out, I will go to them. So while I've said I can do everything, I've always built my business on kind of being the first one. I know how to upholster. I know how to tie a spring. I know how to tie a fox edge. I can go and install in concrete high draperies. I can sit there at a sewing machine and that kind of stuff. It is to the point, though, where I haven't sat in the sewing machine for quite a few years. I
Yeah,
haven't
yeah. I was
gotten a
just about
ladder
to
in a
ask
few years. So my staff is better than me. And I need to go
that.
to them and sit there and say, how am I going to do this?
Okay. But and that's fascinating to me too, Bob, because I think that a lot of us, you went into this with a skill that you had learned and you use that skill to produce a product. And as your business grows, you use that skill less and less. And then you have skills like bookkeeping and
Mhm.
sales
Yep,
and marketing
yep.
and taking Instagram videos for your daughter to turn into reels. And I don't think even those of us who started it as a business really realized what it could become or who we were going to become in that process.
I just sat in my backyard about 2 weeks ago and I looked around and I said, never in my wildest dreams, uh, A little bit of, I have 7 children, 4 of which are married at this point. I have going on 13 grandchildren. I do own a house in Basking Ridge. And I started this business when I got married, and my wife laughs at me. I think I was making $9 or $10 an hour. And she said, like, why did I even say yes? How did we think we were going to survive?
Right. And here you are providing salaries for other people so that they can live.
Exactly. Along the way, there's been a lot of bumps and bruises and that kind of stuff. You talk about bookkeeping. We got ourselves in trouble at one point, with sales tax and other
Mhm.
things. And I've learned along the way. I almost lost my business in 2007, 2008, where I did own a retail business and had to dump that. And I walked into my accountant and I basically handed them everything. I said, I quit, closed it down, like, I'm done. And he looked at me, he said, I'll never forget this. He looked at me and goes, who do you think's going to hire you? Who do you think you're
Oh
going to
my
go work
gosh.
for? He's like, get out of here, go back to your work and figure it out. I was like,
Wow.
wow.
Okay, so that asks answers one of the big questions I always ask is, did you ever think about quitting? Your answer is a resounding, oh, yes.
Oh yeah, I did. I did. And you know what? I needed a good kick in the pants. And,
Apparently, he was good at giving
he
it.
was going to give it to me and that kind of
Wow.
stuff. But it goes to the fact where as a business grows, you surround yourself with great people.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? And that's where it is. It's again one of those things. You always look for great people to surround yourself who are going to help you and build you up, and,
Okay.
and that kind of stuff. Management has probably my biggest challenge in growing a business. How did I get from being by myself to being where I am now, and learning how to guide it along the way, learning how to delegate, learning how to give it up,
Mhm.
learning what I do. That is um, one of the biggest challenges I will say I have faced. I just met an electrician and actually a heavy duty machine guy, and they're both starting in their careers and they're looking to build business. And they said, we love doing what we're doing, we love doing the electrical side, we love driving big machineries, and they said, we want to grow this business. And I said to them, take a management class. I said, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's probably my biggest thing is, yes, learn how to develop your business, but also realize, like, you have to understand where your dollars are going. You have to
Right.
understand where you're making money. You have to understand where you're losing money. How to advertise and that kind of stuff. And that is a big thing that I think is unfortunately missing. And people can learn it through hard knocks. I learned a lot through hard knocks.
Yeah.
But in looking back in my life, what I wish I had learned, what I wish I'd gone to college for, was really management.
Okay. And I think that's great advice that you're giving out. It's again, many of us started out because we had a skill
Yep.
and, oh, I can turn this into a business, but did not understand what running a business actually meant. And to your point, a lot of the women who are in this business who are running single or one or two person workrooms, I know how to sew. I can make a few dollars doing this. And in the beginning, that's what it was. And then as their businesses grew, that management skill needed to be there in order to either say, okay, I'm going to manage a small business or I'm going to grow it and I'm going to hire people. But it takes you further and further away from that thing that you started with.
It can and it can't. You can decide to sit, behind the sewing machine if you want, but most of the time it does. And that is also a lifestyle choice, depending upon what you want to do. Choice. Do you
Right.
want to grow? And I do believe there are levels at which businesses grow in this business. Like, you know what I mean? When you're sitting there by yourself, when you're employing 3 people, and each jump is a challenge, you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
and you sit there and say, and it costs time, it costs money, costs hair. Um, so it's, it's one of those things. Yeah.
All right. I have a couple questions about the growth, but I have a question I want to ask you first. What is your definition of success?
What is my definition of a success? I would say being able to provide for my family,
Hmm.
um, to be able to provide for my employees' families as well.
Right.
Um, that's how I would define success. Like if I can't provide for them, um, what am I doing?
Okay.
Now, in order to do that, you have to keep the customers happy and everything else along the line. But really, it's out there. I'm my success is the fact that I'm thrilled that I'm able to employ all these people, and I believe give them a wage that they can live with.
Okay.
One of the things I built upon is I always call it a family business. My sewers know, my installers know, everybody here knows like what needs to do and what needs to get done.
Okay.
We have, I've grown up with them and their kids. They also know that if they have a doctor's appointment at 9 o'clock on Tuesday, they are free to take off at 9 o'clock on Tuesday. But I also know in the back of my mind when there's a problem and I need them to come in on a Saturday to finish a project, they do not hesitate.
Okay.
So to me, it's really family.
Right. And it's a different definition of a family business.
Yes.
But since we're talking about that and you have 7 children, I'm one of 9, so I can relate to that, that gang.
Which
Is
number?
I'm the 4th child, but I'm the oldest girl.
4th child was okay. I'm the oldest of 10.
Oh, okay. All right. You've
So,
had yeah. Yep. It's a whole lifestyle.
it is. And a little, most of my family lives within 5 miles of us. And it's great most of the time, except when you go into the pizza place and you realize your brother took your pizza.
Now, my siblings don't live terribly far from me, but that has never happened to me. That's really funny, Bob. So, are any of your children interested in the business?
At this point, no.
Okay.
My oldest is, like I said, 4 of them are married, and one of them is off more on the policy side. Is down in D.C. My wife was a labor and delivery nurse. Is currently a diabetic educator. So 2 of my daughters are currently nurses.
Mm-hmm.
One is working in New York Presbyterian in the emergency room, which
Oh,
she
wow.
thinks is fun. So
Okay.
when you're young, go for it. So, but at this point,
Bless her heart.
yeah. And my youngest is just beginning his senior year in high school.
Okay.
So at this point, nobody's interested in it, but we'll see. You know, uh,
Yeah.
it is a question that comes up quite often, and it's a question my kids ask me, or even some other business people, like, when are you thinking about retiring and that kind of stuff. And my kids say, Dad will never retire. He does not know how to stop working, and
Right.
which is good and bad.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. All right. So, based on your definition of success and making sure that you are able to support your family as well as the families of the people who are working for you, I know from so many of my colleagues, and you mentioned surround yourself with good people. That is a really important and really great statement. It's easier to say it than it is to do it.
Yeah.
So, over the years of employing people, have you ever been concerned about someone starting their own business or doing work on the side or any of that that would? I mean, you're running a big business, Bob. So one person going home and sewing some drapes is not going to impact your business, but it's also like, okay, but that doesn't feel
No,
good.
I've never. I can't say I've actually encouraged it. I've had a number of my employees go out and start their own businesses, some of whom have been mildly successful in different ways. Some went to open a retail store. which again is not what I'm looking to do type thing.
Right.
Some of the people in the shop have gone out to do their own business. I've actually given them stuff to do while they own their own business, and they've come back to me and said, we like you. We would rather just work for you than have our own business.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
I can't say I've ever been, I think there's enough business out there,
Agreed.
and I've never been afraid of it. I've always encouraged it and
Okay.
said, great, let me know what I can do to help. Like I treat them just like any other business owner. Any business owner would come to me and say, I need help in this area. I'd go and help,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. So no, I can't say I've ever been really concerned about that.
Okay. The sponsors of the So Much More podcast allow me to bring guests to you each week. And without them, I couldn't do it. I'm pleased as the owner of the Curtains and Soft Furnishings Resource Library that I can use the library to help sponsor the podcast as well. The library hosts the industry's largest curated collection of educational resources for the custom home furnishings professional. Membership to the library gives you access to a wealth of downloadable reference materials, videos, live events, as well as a community of support to help you develop your design, sales, and fabrication skills, and to grow or start a business. Join the library today at csfrl.org. The Workroom Channel is the premier online training provider for professional fabrication skills. Go to theworkroomchannel.com to browse the selection of anytime access courses created by industry experts. Watch detailed demonstration videos, download companion materials, and participate in private course discussion boards with your instructor and classmates from around the world. Start your course path today at theworkroomchannel.com. Education, networking, visibility, and industry discounts are just a few of the benefits that are offered to members of the Window Covering Association of America. The WCAA is the only national nonprofit trade association that's dedicated to the window coverings industry and the dealers, decorators, workrooms, designers, and installers that make up our membership. The library is a gold level sponsor of the WCAA. Join today at WCAA.org. WCAA, where you are never in business alone. Discover Climacca Studios, where innovation meets exceptional design. Climacca fabric and wallpaper collections are inspired by the original works of collaborating artists and developed with the understanding of how fabrics are manipulated into exquisite soft home furnishings. Workroom businesses enjoy exclusive access to engineered designs and best trade pricing. From clever layouts to classic linen prints, Climacca Studios delivers the quality and consistency that your business demands. And Climacca's reliable, on-time delivery keeps your projects running smoothly. Go to climaccastudios.com for swatches and trade account information. Climacca Studios, for the joy and profit of workrooms. One of the things that we talk about, and you mentioned, like letting go of some of it, handing off jobs, letting somebody else take control of something. When you're cutting $300 yard fabric and you make a mistake, you can say whatever you want to yourself, including a few four-letter words, and it hurts and you have to repurchase it. But when someone you're working for makes that mistake, we have to be kinder to them, first of all. But it's, what do you do when there's a mistake like that? And the volume of work that you're doing, even with all the quality control measures in place possible, mistakes will happen. How do you handle them as a person, as a business? What do you do?
So mistakes will always happen, and you have to deal with it in certain ways. As a company, I've learned that if a mistake happens, once we correct the mistake and we move on. What happens the second time, it catches my notice, and again, it gets corrected and move on. And the third time, we actually change our systems, our way of
Okay.
doing things, in order for that not to happen again.
Okay.
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 So whenever somebody comes to me with a one-off problem, we fix it. One of the biggest challenges I see with workrooms when problems arise is, one, they're not charging enough to cover a problem.
Correct. Yep.
Problems will arise, okay, and that kind of stuff. We just had a problem here where somebody messed up some banding on some draperies, and it caused a bit of a backlog in this, but happens.
Yeah.
Like, and you just have to deal with it and move on.
Hmm.
You can't, for me personally, I don't yell and scream. I sometimes I have to bury it a little bit, and I look for the way how to work that problem out.
Okay.
Because if you don't work the problem out, what good is it? To me, that's a sign of a good manager,
Gotcha.
right? And my people also know if they have a problem, they're supposed to figure out how to deal with the problem in the first place.
Okay.
If something happens, draper rod falls out of the wall, fabric is miscut, this, that, and the other thing, fine, it's a problem. But don't come to me without an answer to the problem.
Okay. All right.
Okay? Even if it means, hey, there's no other way around this, we need to order new fabric.
Okay.
You know?
Got it.
So, yeah. You have to hit it head on without going crazy.
I agree, but I always think of when we have employees, how do they feel when they have to come to us and say, "Oh, here's what I did," and
They
I
feel
think,
terrible.
yeah, exactly.
They absolutely feel terrible. And in one sense, how can I put this the right way? You want them to feel terrible. Being terrible puts you on your toes again, right?
Right. Right.
I always say meeting new people, for me, puts me on my toes again. It's like, there are times when I will get nervous meeting somebody or a certain point because of whatever it is. And I always tell my kids, they're getting nervous is something that's good, as long as it doesn't paralyze you, right?
Right.
But it causes you to focus on that area or focus on whatever it is. So, yes, do I want my employees to feel terrible? To a point, yes.
Yeah.
If they're laughing it off, oh, I messed up, and it's going to cost you $7,000. Then I have a problem with it. But
Correct.
oh my gosh, I have to go to the boss and tell him that I screwed up royally. I don't know
Right.
what he's going to do to me. So there should be a little bit of nervousness, but again, hopefully not paralyzed, because if
Right.
you
You
don't
want them
have
to come to
communication,
you.
right? If you don't have communication, you're dead.
Okay. Okay. I want to back up for a second. I asked you about your definition of success, but I would love to know, what is the greatest success you've had so far?
My wife.
Oh, that's lovely, Bob. That's so nice.
The fact that she said yes to me and has stayed with me all these years. Okay.
I was going to say, especially given the fact that she said, "No, don't do this."
Exactly.
Stayed with you anyway.
Okay. So that's the greatest success. I mean, in terms of business, I've had a number of things that we've done that have been great jobs. We've worked in, $100 million penthouses. We worked in $75 million places. We've done, 2 years ago, we did all of Cipriani's ballrooms in Manhattan. And those were really, to me, a success, and I think something that was exciting for me that we hadn't done. I spent about a year trying to sell the job. We finally sold the job, and I went to my staff and I said, I sold the job, and these draperies were, I think, 85 feet long and
Wow.
30, 40 feet wide. And I said to them, now that I sold it, you guys have to figure out how we're actually going to make it. And I got up and I left the room, and there was silence along my management staff. Okay. I did come back into the room and we did figure it out. We partnered up with somebody else and it really helped us a lot. But, we've had a lot of successes. What else have we done that's fun? It's just, I remember somebody asked us to do leather elevator handles. And I was like,
Wow.
idea how we're going to upholster there was handrails and things and we did it. It was kind of
Yeah.
fun. It was kind of exciting. So I guess those are some of my successes that we've done, that have been fun. And I will say the latest one has been Cipriani. So that was
Okay.
really out of something that we do every day and really fun and exciting.
Okay. So back to your accountant saying who would hire you, which that's one of the best lines I've ever heard, Bob. I often ask my guests, if you weren't doing this as a career, what else would you be doing?
I've always been fascinated with, I know this sounds funny, with heavy, big machinery.
Okay.
Building roads. If you watch Gold Rush on TV with their big machineries and that kind of stuff, I think I probably would have went down that path.
Okay.
I never saw myself, I don't think, as a banker or as somebody who's going to sit behind a desk and that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. I do like being outside in the fresh air. I'm not a big desk sitter.
Okay.
And so it would probably be something like that.
Okay. That's a better answer than a lot of people are able to give me because a lot of them are like, nothing. I'm not doing anything but this. Bob, I love asking my guests about books. Are you a book reader? And it can be audio books. Are there business books or other kinds of books that you like to listen to or read to?
I can't say years ago. I read a lot of sci-fi. Recently, I'm getting to the age where I actually have to go to the eye doctor and get glasses. And
Yeah.
I actually have not read a lot of books lately,
Okay.
but I have loved it all my life and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So I can't say I've read a lot of books lately. No.
Okay. Do you use a lot of technology in your business?
Yeah, we do and we don't. Technology is one of those things that I constantly look at and see how we can implement it and use it. We have a measuring app, which we absolutely love with pictures. You can put notes there. Um, Technology, the biggest technology thing I like is we use the iPhone.
Hmm.
That has allowed us to do so many different things in so many different places. It's just crazy, from video conferencing to checking on my trucks where my staff is on the road to see if they're going to be early or late for an appointment. If they have problems, we know where they are. Um, Pictures, messages, so to me, the iPhone, it also allows me to leave the office and to go play
Right.
golf,
Yep.
and I can be, people sit there and say, where I am. I'm like, it doesn't matter where I am. As long as I pick up your phone call,
Yeah.
the ranger at my where I play golf often kind of knows. He's like, we laugh at you. He goes, you'll go play 3-4 holes, and then you'll be playing with the group. He's like, you'll just take up your phone and walk the next hole. I was like, oh yeah, because I got to go work.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
in order to pay for it. So I would say the iPhone has totally transformed probably the world, but in terms
Yeah.
of our business, probably the largest thing out there.
Okay. All right. Other than the iPhone, what are one or two business items that you could not live without?
Other than the iPhone, I mean, it's really computer technology, that kind of stuff. There's really no other thing. I measures. It's all kind of tied in together and that kind of stuff.
Right.
I do love. We are currently looking at a new piece of um, software where we'll be able to pull all of our different drives and accountings and that kind of stuff all underneath one item. I do have a challenge where, I will go to 3-4 work sites a day, and I can't say I always remember the designer's name, the customer's name, the
Yeah.
contractor who's going to be on that job, as well as the AV person. And this software will allow us to put all this information in one spot, along with pictures and that kind of stuff, and then bring it over into our accounting software. So I am kind of excited about this new software because
Okay.
I'm terrible about remembering projects and names and that kind of
Okay.
stuff.
If you've got a way to help you remember, then you've got everything you need.
Usually the way I remember is I bring an assistant. And they say to me, "You're meeting this person. You met him 3 weeks ago at the job site." And I'm like, "Okay, great. Thank you."
Thank you. Hey, whatever tools work. Bob, what do you do extremely well?
What do I do extremely well? I like to think of myself as a motivator, as bringing out the best in the person,
Hmm.
as well as helping them grow.
Okay.
One of my assistants left a number of years ago, and my wife said to me, and can I use this story? Yeah, I could probably use this story. And my wife said to me to go hire this person to be, to help you in the business, to become your assistant. And I've seen that person grow tremendously, from not knowing anything about this business to be able to this point going out to meet designers for the first time, to bring along the projects that she brings, to be able to measure, to understand what we do, and to have her confidence grow. And that's what I try and do. And I think that's one of the things I do best is bring out the best of people, to encourage them to go to the next level.
Okay.
Right? If you're working for me, I'm always a big promoter of, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Okay.
So I always want to see people like do better and encourage them better, which is sometimes a challenge for me because I have to make sure that there's certain areas that they can do better in.
Okay.
And sometimes as the business grows, you kind of have to move people around and places around and that kind of stuff. And I make them uncomfortable. Um,
Okay.
when
That's where growth happens.
that's how growth happens. When I hire people, I'm going to sit there and say, like, I'm going to give you stuff. One, I may not even know how to do, but I know I need it done.
Right.
When Instagram first came out, I went to one of the people who was working for me, and I said to her, "I need you to do this Instagram account." And she said to me, "What do you know about it?" I said, "Nothing." Nothing, zero. I said, "But I need you to put a presence out there and that kind of stuff." And she looked at me and she was like, "Are you nuts?" Well, in 6 months, this person had put on the Instagram account and grew it and that kind of stuff. And she did a great job. You know what I mean? And so as her workload expanded, I did offload the Instagram account to one of my children. But it's like I'm always looking for people to grow, because I think that's how you grow. That's how you get
Yeah.
challenged and that kind of stuff.
Right. And it's trusting them. You weren't going to her and saying, "Here, I'm going to teach you how to do this." It's, "Here, this needs to be done, and I trust that you can figure it out."
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I'm a big fan of Reagan. Ronald Reagan, when he was president, one of the first things he said was trust but verify. Now, he was
Hmm.
doing that with the Soviet Union, which is on a little bit of a different scale than I do things. Um, but I am a firm believer of that. Like, you have to trust people, but you also have to verify that things are being done,
Yeah.
And that's why you have metrics. How much are
Yeah.
we producing? What are your sales numbers? Did you do this job in the quickest way? So one is, you need metrics to measure against, but also you do have to constantly measure and look at. And there is a balancing between looking over somebody's shoulder all the time so that they
Hmm.
feel uncomfortable, and letting them do a job. And there is a balancing act there as well.
Okay. Okay. All right, Bob, what do you not do so well?
What do I not do so well? I don't know. I'm just an awesome human being. Uh, sometimes I get a little tired and I get a little silly, I will tell you. And sometimes I go off course, usually around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, some of my stories are probably not appropriate for different places and that kind of stuff. And so, honestly, I try not to have sales calls between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. I get tired, I get cranky, and as I get older, and I know how to keep an eye on myself and be like, yeah, like it's not going to work. Okay.
It's good that you know yourself that well.
Yeah. In terms of what else do I not do good? Gosh, you're asking me introspective questions, which, as an awesome human being, I have a hard time bringing to the light. Okay. So I'm going to leave it at that.
I was going to say, you gave me one. I'm not looking for a list. I don't want to make people feel bad about themselves. What about you would surprise people?
Well, I think I said the one thing that would surprise most people is that I am the oldest of 10. My mother has 69 grandchildren and 15, I think was the lady's count, great grandchildren. I do have 7 children, and I am proud of my family and that kind of stuff. So I think people are surprised by that, given today's thing. And, I often get didn't your parents have a TV? Didn't you have a TV? And I sit there and say, yeah, we did, but we enjoy life. And I would never, I've often run into people that have 0, 1, or 2 children and that kind of stuff. And I always said, maybe that's what God's meant you to have, And, we do have 7 children, and I think that surprises a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they say, how do you manage that also? My children have done a lot of sports, whether it be baseball, soccer, Irish dancing, you name it, have gone to a lot of very well-known high schools and colleges and that kind of stuff. They've all, to this point, have gone on to be very productive people and that kind of stuff. And, I tend to share, I don't always tend to share everything that's going on in my life. And
right.
So I think that would surprise a lot of people.
Right. And I think sometimes when you're an extrovert and you're somebody who motivates other people, that every detail of your life is not out there for the world to hear. Doesn't mean that just because you're gregarious and want to talk to people doesn't mean that you share everything. I get that. I get that.
Exactly.
It is interesting when you come from a big family. In my family, 4 is the largest number of kids any of us had. Everybody had, and not that it was because I'm not having a big family, it's just the times and everything else. But there's a lot to be said for having, cousins in high school and family down the street and family nearby. There's a lot of benefit to being part of a big family. There's no doubt about it.
And my wife and I do have a joke about that. She always said, I had the first 3 kids, but she had the last 4. Okay. She oldest of 4. And, how many kids do you, want to have when we get married? And I said, 1 at a time, but she was the one that were pushing. Okay. So that's
funny. I was going to ask you, were there any twins anywhere in your family or, okay. All right. Because my mom did have a set of twins.
Yeah, no. Dropping my oldest off at he did go to Notre Dame at college. My wife realized she was pregnant, with our youngest child, so we have a large span and that kind of stuff. And people say, what do you do with your life? And I feel like between being the oldest of 10 and having 7 myself, I feel like I have always been raising children and that kind of stuff. Okay.
Right.
There was always a diaper to be changed and that kind of stuff. In fact, when my children started having children, I said to them, listen, I'm going to have lots of fun with your kids. I am not changing one diaper at all for any reason.
Bob, especially being the oldest of 10, when my twin sisters are the 8th and 9th. Okay. So after all those children, my mother found out she was pregnant and having twins. And she used to tell the story that and she spent like a month in the hospital towards the end of her pregnancy. she remembers waking up the first morning that she came home with the babies and never woke up in the middle of the night and thought, oh my God, what happened? And there were my oldest brother and I changing their diapers and giving them bottles because that's what we did. So as the oldest of 10, I'm sure you did more than your fair share of diaper changing as a kid. As a grandfather, you get to take a step back. So we've touched on Dad's never going to stop working. Dad's never going to retire. We've talked about where's your business going? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, Bob?
I don't know. That's been a big topic around the house lately. I've always said I will work through at least all my kids going through college. Like I said, my youngest is a senior in high school, so 5 years would bring me to that end. So I still see myself working. I don't see. I see my work at this point, because it's involved in more management than anything else, is a little bit easier.
Okay.
I will sneak out and play a little bit of hooky every now and then. On some of our far-flung trips, I will take an extra day or two and enjoy life a little bit. So at the end of 5 years, where do I see myself? I don't know. My grandfather retired when he was 57, 58 to go see the world. Now, this was 1970. Okay.
That's unusual.
It was extremely unusual. So years later, I said to my grandfather, I said, if you had to live your life differently, what would you have done? He did live till he was 93 years old. Okay. He's like, if I had known I was going to live to the age, I think I asked him when he was 90, he's like, I would have worked for another 10, 15 years. He's like, I've seen the world like 3 times over. And there is a good thing about man needing work.
Yes. So
it doesn't necessarily have to do with manufacturing of draperies or something like that.
Right.
But as a man, as a woman, as anybody, you do need work to do. In the next 5 years, I will probably look to see if my work is going to change.
Okay.
And how will it change, or will it continue on? There's a lot of things out there that are in play and that kind of stuff. Will I work to support certain causes that are near and dear to my heart? That's one way of doing it. Will I go do those causes and sell the business? So a 5-year question, it's a very good question. It's one I will be exploring for the next 5 years.
But you don't have an answer to it yet.
Not
perfectly normal.
I've never had an answer to what's going to happen next year. I know people are always into forecasting and that kind of stuff. And as a businessman, I do have to forecast and that kind of stuff. I grab things as I see them.
Okay.
I grabbed that Lutron box off the back of a UPS truck and learned how to do shades.
I love that.
Okay. And so, I have always moved and bobbed and that kind of stuff. I try and keep my eyes open. I try and learn every day. So, maybe my shop will be 100 people in 5 years. Maybe it will be 3. I don't know. But I look and see what happens and what's out there. And while I have a plan, I don't have a plan.
Gotcha. Okay. Bob, before I ask the final question, how can people find you? We've already established you're on Instagram. Are you on Facebook as well? And I'll put a link to everything in the show notes.
Thank you. I think Workroom Services has a Facebook page as well. We are on Instagram. Like I said, we're located in central New Jersey. You can look up workroomservices.com. We do have a website out there. Send me an email, bob@workroomservices.com. Give me a call, and I tell people, I give them my cell number is on my thing, and I sit there and say, call me if you have a question. Call me if you need help. Call me, whatever. And there are times I won't pick up your phone call, especially if I don't know who you are. And
Yeah,
sometimes you
right.
have to send me a text message first, and so I can
Absolutely.
understand. You know, so we're in a variety of areas and that kind of stuff. And I always say, call me, ask me. More than willing to help at any point in time.
Okay, I'll put links to everything in the show notes for
Great.
people. So, as much as I'm enjoying this conversation, you've got either work or golf to get to, or your kids. So, I would love to know if you have any advice for anyone who is listening, whether it's someone who's new in this business or someone who's been around for a while.
Learn, learn. One of the best books I ever read was Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful
Yes.
Business People, or whatever. I think that is one of the best books that I have ever read in terms of business organizations and that kind of stuff. I have read other books as well, but I always credit that guy with really giving me direction in my life for business and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And be open to what happens next. Never be closed. You know, be humble. One of the big things that I've been going over with my staff and that kind of stuff is to be humble. Be humble enough to learn
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of stuff. If you're humble and you can be humbly correct as well, okay, and speak
Yeah.
up at the right times and that kind of stuff. But be humble and sit there and say, "Great, let me work with you. Let me figure it out," and that kind of stuff. Humble man can never be thrown off his throne because he's already humble. That would
Good
probably
point.
be my advice that I would give to
All
people.
right. Bob, that's great. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
And thank you very much for having me on. Again, this is great, and I think I'm going to go enjoy my beach now.
Okay, yeah, right. Good. Thanks, Bob. I really hope that you enjoyed hearing from Bob today. It was a pleasure to talk with him. I loved hearing about his philosophies. And often when I'm interviewing a guest and they say certain things, I'll jot down, oh, that might make a good title, or I want to remember exactly what they said and how they said it. And I've got about 6 post-it notes filled with things that Bob said. So I really hope that you got something out of this conversation. And again, reinforce the idea that the people in our industry are so willing to help each other and encourage each other. And I love that. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day.